God's blessing, dear friends, what a profound reflection on God's blessings, isn't it? It's truly impressive. Sometimes we are so focused on the difficulties of life that we forget to notice the good things our Heavenly Father is sending our way. Do you understand? We live in a rather complicated world, don't we? Full of problems and uncertainties. Sometimes we even feel a bit frightened. But that's where the crucial point lies, my dear ones. It is in those moments that the blessing of the Lord manifests with all its strength, like a comforting spiritual hug. Do you understand? When we are at rock bottom, thinking that everything is lost, suddenly God sends that divine light to illuminate our path. It's moving, you know? And just look at the wonder. God's blessings are not just those material things, like a nice car or a pleasant house, though that is also good, isn't it? LOL. No, my friends. The true blessings are those we can barely see. It is the unconditional love of the Father, that joy that comes from within, that peace that, well, how can I put it, is indescribable. It's as if it were a direct transmission from heaven to our hearts. But wait, there's more. We cannot just passively enjoy the blessings. We need to be like ambassadors of blessing, do you understand? In other words, we need to spread this positive energy to the brothers and sisters who are in need. Sometimes it's just a smile, a kind word, or even a hug. These small gestures can transform someone's day, my dear ones. Think with me, how many times have we felt blessed by a simple gesture from someone? Perhaps it was that friend who called at just the right moment, or that stranger who opened the door for us when our hands were full. It is in those moments that we realize how God works through the people around us. And if He uses others to bless us, why can't we be the instruments of His blessing? Just imagine the impact we could have if each of us decided to be a source of blessings every day. It would be like a chain reaction of kindness and love, transforming not only our lives but also our communities and, who knows, maybe even the world. Isn't that a wonderful idea? Of course, it's not always easy to maintain this positive attitude, especially when we are facing our own challenges. But it is precisely in those moments that we need to remember the blessings we have already received. It's as if we were doing an inventory of gratitude. Try doing that right now. Stop for a moment and think of 5 things you are grateful for. They can be big or small, it doesn't matter. The important thing is to recognize the blessings in our lives. You know, sometimes we get so used to certain blessings that we fail to appreciate them as we should. The simple fact that we have a roof over our heads, food on the table, or health to face the day-to-day is already incredible blessings that many people in the world do not have. And what about the blessing of having people who love us? Or the ability to learn and grow each day? And speaking of growth, we must not forget that difficulties can also be blessings in disguise. Yes, you read that right. Those challenging moments, those situations that take us out of our comfort zone, are often opportunities for growth that God places in our path. It's as if He is saying, hey, trust me. I have something important to teach you here. I remember a story I heard once about a man who was going through a very tough time in his life. He had lost his job, was having financial problems, and his health was not good at all. One day, in despair, he cried out to God, Lord, why are you allowing all of this to happen to me? Where are your blessings? That night, he had a dream. In the dream, he saw himself walking along a beach with God. Looking back, he saw 2 sets of footprints in the sand, his and God's. But then he noticed that in the most difficult moments of his life, there was only 1 set of footprints. Intrigued, he asked God, Lord, why did you leave me when I needed you the most? And God, with all His wisdom and love, replied, my beloved child, I never left you. In the hardest times, when you saw only 1 set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. This story always moves me, as it reminds us that even when we cannot see or feel, God is always with us, carrying us and blessing us in ways that we often do not understand at the moment. And speaking of not understanding, how many times have we found ourselves questioning God's ways? Why is this happening to me? Why wasn't my prayer answered? Where is God in this moment of pain? These are natural questions, my friends. After all, we are human, and our vision is limited. But it is in these moments that our faith is put to the test, and we have the opportunity to grow spiritually. Always remember, God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts higher than our thoughts. Sometimes, what seems like a denied blessing may actually be divine protection. Or what we see as an obstacle may be the step we needed to reach a new level in our lives. Speaking of which, have you ever stopped to think about how God's blessings often come in unexpected packages? It's like that Christmas gift you open and think, that wasn't exactly what I wanted. But over time, you realize it was exactly what you needed. God knows our needs better than we do, and His blessings are always perfect, even when we don't understand them right away. Now, my dear ones, I want to share with you something I've learned over the years: the importance of cultivating a grateful heart. Gratitude is like a magic lens that allows us to see God's blessings in every situation. When we practice gratitude daily, something incredible happens. We begin to notice more and more blessings around us. How about we start a gratitude journal? The idea is simple: every day, before going to bed, write down 3 things you are grateful for. It could be something grand, like a promotion at work, or something seemingly small, like the smile of a stranger on the street. The important thing is to recognize and give thanks. I guarantee you, after a few weeks of doing this, you will notice a significant change in your perspective on life. And speaking of perspective, sometimes we need to take a step back to truly appreciate the blessings in our lives. It's like admiring a painting. Up close, we only see confusing brushstrokes, but when we step back a bit, the artwork reveals its beauty. In the same way, when we look at our lives with a bit of distance, we can see the bigger picture that God is painting. I remember a time when I was very frustrated because an important project hadn't worked out. I felt like a failure and questioned why God had allowed that. But a few months later, an even better opportunity arose, and I realized that if the previous project had succeeded, I wouldn't have been available for this new blessing. God had a better plan, I just couldn't see it at the moment. This makes me think about how God's blessings often function like a puzzle. Each piece, in isolation, may not make much sense. But when we start putting them together, a beautiful picture begins to form. Sometimes, it takes years to see the complete picture, but we can trust that the great artist knows exactly what he is doing. Oh, and we must not forget that God's blessings are not just for our personal benefit. We are blessed to be blessings. This means we should use what we receive, be it talent, resources, or experiences, to bless others. It's like a river. If it only receives water without letting it flow, it becomes a stagnant lake. But when it allows the water to flow, it brings life wherever it goes. Think about all the ways we can be channels of God's blessings: through our words, we can encourage; through our actions, we can serve; through our presence, we can comfort. Each of us has a unique gift, a special way to reflect God's love to the world. What is yours? And you know what's even more amazing? When we make ourselves a blessing to others, we end up being even more blessed. It's as if God says, "Look, you trusted me enough to share what I gave you. Now I will give you even more." It's the principle of sowing and reaping in action. Speaking of sowing, I remembered a parable that Jesus told about the sower. Some seeds fell on rocky ground, others among thorns, and others on good soil. God's blessings are like those seeds. They have the potential to produce an abundant harvest in our lives. But it depends on us to prepare the soil of our hearts to receive and cultivate them. How can we prepare that soil? Well, it starts with an attitude of openness and receptivity to God's blessings. Often, we are so busy asking for specific things that we miss the unexpected blessings He is pouring out upon us. It's like that story of the man who prayed every day asking to win the lottery until one day he heard a voice from heaven saying, "My son, at least buy a ticket." Sometimes, we need to do our part to receive the blessings that God has for us. Another important aspect is patience. Not all blessings are instant. Some are like seeds that need time to germinate and grow. Think of an oak tree. It takes years to become a majestic tree, but when it grows, it offers shade and shelter to many. In the same way, some of God's greatest blessings in our lives may take time to fully manifest. The question is, are we willing to wait and trust in God's timing? And speaking of trust, sometimes God's blessings come disguised as problems. It's like that saying, when God wants to send a gift, he wraps it in a problem. The question is, do we have eyes to see the hidden blessing in the difficulty? Perhaps it's a lesson we need to learn, a relationship that needs to be strengthened, or an opportunity for growth that we wouldn't have otherwise. I remember a story about a farmer who had an old horse to plow his fields. One day, the horse escaped into the hills. When the farmer's neighbors sympathized with the old man due to his bad luck, the farmer replied, "Bad luck? Good luck? Who knows?" A week later, the horse returned bringing with it a herd of wild horses. Then, the neighbors congratulated the farmer on his good luck. His response was, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" Then, when the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses, he fell and broke his leg. Everyone considered this to be very bad luck. Not the farmer, whose only reaction was, "Bad luck? Good luck? Who knows?" A few weeks later, the army marched through the village, recruiting all the young men they encountered. When they saw the farmer's son with his broken leg, they passed him by. Luck had changed once again. This story reminds us that often we cannot immediately judge whether something is a blessing or a curse. What seems like a setback today may be the seed of a great blessing tomorrow. That's why trust in God is so important. He sees the bigger picture that often escapes us. Now, my dear friends, I want to talk about something we sometimes forget, the importance of celebrating blessings. Often, we are so busy seeking the next blessing that we forget to celebrate the ones we have already received. It's as if we are always chasing the next milestone without stopping to appreciate the journey. How about we take a pause right now to celebrate? Think of a recent blessing in your life. It can be something big or small, it doesn't matter. Now, take a moment to truly thank God for it. Feel the joy and gratitude filling your heart. Isn't it nice? This is a practice we can incorporate into our daily routine. And speaking of routine, sometimes we fall into the trap of thinking that God's blessings are only extraordinary events. But the truth is, He blesses us every day in ways we often don't notice. The air we breathe, the sun that rises every morning, the ability to love and be loved, all these are incredible blessings that we often take for granted. Imagine if we woke up every day with a heart full of expectation for the blessings God has in store for us. How would that change our perspective? How would it transform our attitude towards challenges? I believe we would see a radical change in our lives and in the way we interact with the world around us. And speaking of interacting with the world, we must not forget that we are called to be light. The blessings we receive are not just for our personal benefit, but to illuminate the path of those around us. Sometimes, a simple smile, a word of encouragement, or an act of kindness can be the manifestation of God's blessing in the life of someone going through a difficult time. I remember a time when I was having a particularly challenging day. Everything seemed to go wrong, and I felt completely discouraged. It was then that an elderly lady in the supermarket queue gave me such a genuine and warm smile that I immediately felt my spirit lift. She had no idea of the impact that simple gesture had on me. It was as if God were saying to me through that smile, "Hey, I'm here with you. Everything will be all right." This experience taught me two important things. First, never underestimate the power of a small act of kindness. You never know how your actions can impact someone. Second, always be attentive to the disguised blessings that God places in your path. Sometimes, the blessing we need comes through the least expected person or the most unlikely situation. Another thing I would like to share with you is the importance of maintaining an attitude of gratitude, even when things are not going as planned. It's easy to be grateful when everything is going well, isn't it? But the true test of our faith and trust in God comes when we face adversities. The Apostle Paul gives us a powerful example of this. Remember that he wrote some of his most encouraging letters while in prison. In Philippians 4 verses 11 to 13, he says, "I have learned to be content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength." What a powerful testimony! Paul had learned the secret of finding contentment and blessing in every circumstance. He understood that his strength did not come from himself or external circumstances, but from God. And that is a lesson we can all learn. Think about it. What if we started to see every situation, good or bad, as an opportunity to experience God's blessing? What if, instead of complaining about difficulties, we began to ask, God, what do you want to teach me through this? How can I grow in this situation? Imagine how that would transform our perspective. Sometimes, the greatest blessings come from the biggest challenges. It's like the refining process of gold. It must go through fire to have the impurities removed and its true value revealed. Similarly, it is often through trials that our character is shaped and our faith strengthened. I remember a friend who lost his job during an economic crisis. At first, he was devastated. But over time, he began to see that situation as an opportunity. He used the free time to develop a skill he had always wanted to learn, and he ended up discovering a new passion that led him to a much more fulfilling career. Looking back, he says that losing his job was one of the best things that ever happened to him, even though it seemed like a tragedy at the moment. This makes me think, how many times do we fail to recognize God's blessings because they don't come in the package we expected? Sometimes, God's no to a request of ours is actually a yes to something much better that He has in store for us. It's like that story of the boy who asked for a horse for Christmas. When he received a pair of cowboy boots instead, he was disappointed. But the following summer, his father took him to a riding camp, where he could ride several different horses and learn much more than he would have with just one horse at home. This story reminds us that God sees the complete picture of our lives. He knows what is best for us, even when we do not understand at the moment. That's why trust is so important on our faith journey. Trust that, even when we do not see or understand, God is working all things for our good. And speaking of trust, how about we talk about the importance of prayer in recognizing and receiving God's blessings? Prayer is not just a moment for us to make requests to God, but an opportunity to connect with Him, to align our hearts with His, and to open our eyes to the blessings He is already pouring into our lives. Often, we spend so much time asking for specific things in our prayers that we forget to stop and listen. And it's in those moments of silence and contemplation that we often perceive the subtle blessings that God is placing in our path. It's as if we are tuning our hearts to the frequency of God's love. One practice that has helped me a lot is to begin my prayers with gratitude. Before presenting my requests to God, I take some time to thank Him for the blessings I have already received. This not only cultivates a grateful heart but also helps me to recognize how much God has already done in my life. It's surprising how this simple shift in perspective can transform our experience of prayer. And speaking of transformation, we must not forget that one of the greatest blessings God offers us is the opportunity to be transformed into the image of Christ. This is a lifelong journey, filled with ups and downs, challenges and victories. But at every step of the way, God is with us, shaping and refining us. Sometimes, this transformation can be painful. It may involve letting go of old habits, facing deeply rooted fears, or forgiving someone who has hurt us deeply. But even in those difficult moments, we can trust that God is working for our good. He sees the potential in us that we often do not see in ourselves. I remember a story I heard about a sculptor working on a large block of marble. A boy passed by the studio every day and watched the artist at work. At first, all he saw was a shapeless block. But as the weeks went by, he began to see a figure emerging from the stone. Finally, when the sculpture was complete, a magnificent statue of a lion, the boy asked the sculptor, "Sir, how did you know there was a lion inside that block of marble?" The sculptor smiled and replied, "I saw the lion from the very beginning. Everything I did was remove the excess stone to reveal what was already there." In a way, that is how God works in our lives. He sees the potential that exists within each of us, the lion we can become. And through the experiences of life, both the good and the challenging, He is sculpting our character, removing what is not essential and revealing the beauty He has always seen in us. This transformation is one of the greatest blessings we can experience. It is the process by which we become more like Christ, more capable of loving as He loved, serving as He served, and forgiving as He forgave. And do you know what is even more incredible? This process of transformation is not just for our personal benefit. As we are transformed, we become more effective instruments of God's blessings for others. It is as if we are vessels that God is constantly cleaning and refining so that we can contain and pour out His love more fully. So, my dear friends, I encourage you to embrace this journey of transformation. Do not be afraid of the difficult moments, for it is often in those moments that we experience the most significant growth. And always remember, you are a masterpiece in progress in the hands of the greatest artist in the universe. As we come to the end of this reflection on God's blessings, I want to leave you with a challenge. In the coming days, make a conscious effort to notice the blessings in your life. Big or small, obvious or subtle. Write them down, share them with someone, thank God for them. And more than that, seek ways to be a blessing to others. Remember, God's blessings are like a flowing river. The more we allow them to flow through us to others, the more abundantly we experience them in our own lives. May we be not only recipients of God's blessings but also channels through which His love and grace flow to the world around us. May God richly bless you, my dear friends. Until our next meeting, keep your hearts open to the wonderful ways in which God is working in your lives. And always remember, you are loved, you are valuable, and you are a blessing to this world. Stay in the peace and love of Christ. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you not only keep updated with our inspiring messages but also join a community that seeks to live and share the love of Christ. Your presence here is valuable and essential for all of us. So, let us continue this journey together, seeking God's blessings in our lives and sharing them with the world. May the Lord bless each of you abundantly, may He renew your strength, and may His peace always be in your hearts. Remember, God's blessing is real and powerful, and He desires that each of us experience it fully. Until our next meeting, may God keep and bless you.